Hello YouTube, good evening. Um, last night, Orbx released Florida for Florida HD, and I've been looking forward to getting this. I don't usually buy products when they're not on sale, being as cheap as I am, but this one I'd been waiting for. So when they announced it, I was like, uh-oh, there goes my wallet. I um, I picked it up and I've been flying around looking at it and trying different things. I'm flying the Aerobasque E1000. I was thinking about flying a low and slow, but then I thought, well, really, a couple of things there. Number one is I typically fly, turboprops or twins or something like that. And I didn't want to fly a twin because you really can't see. I mean, you look out this way and there's a great big engine out there. So I wasn't going to fly a twin, and really low and slow, how much of the countryside would you see? I mean, the thing, a Cessna 172 can only move so fast. So I decided I was going to give this a shot and see how it does with different settings. I'm going to take off. I'm going to fly at 3,000 feet. We're going to look over towards St. Petersburg. See how you'll see how crowded it is over there, and we're going to keep our eye on the performance. I've got my performance counter on right now, and I'm sitting here. I've got a GTX 1070 with 8 gig of video RAM. I think it's an i9 something or other CPU with 16 gig of RAM, and yeah, so I just wanted to give my impressions, since this is where I do a lot of flying. I fly around and in and out of Florida, Bahamas, down to the Keys. It's a lot of fun, I have to say. So anyway, without much more, we're sitting on runway 18 at St. Petersburg. Right now, looking up, I do have G-Sync off, and I'm running 4K in fact, I'll bring up my graphic settings because that's relevant. We're going to change these settings a couple of times probably. I'm running high on the number of world objects. Anti-aliasing I generally keep pretty low because I am running 4K. I don't need it as much as if you're running 1K. And you can see my texture quality is here. I honestly never see much change to anything when I move this thing around, so I'm sure somebody out there will go, what, are you audio blind? Yep, I got some glasses. So and I haven't tried higher HDR. In fact, if I did that, I don't know what that would do. I haven't tried reflections. If anybody chimes in while I'm doing this and they want to see some of those changes, I could definitely do that. My field of view is a little high, and just to give you an idea, let's see, I'm running 90 on my field of view for takeoff roll right now. Let's see, and I could, yeah, X-plane typically keeps it around here. That's 72, 73. And that actually makes it my frame rate worse. That's 24 right there. But looking out the window, it looks fabulous. It looks great. But then what'll happen at takeoff roll? And then if I go 90 again, sorry, my computer is misbehaving. If you saw that or not. If I go back to 90. Oh, there's 87. Let's try 87. It's a little better. It's 25, one more frame. Okay, so enough of that. Okay, so like I said, I'm St. Petersburg, runway 18. This is a .org airport. It's a really nice one. It's a little bit tough on frames too, I'll say that. but we're going to get away from it so we can get a pretty good idea of how Florida performs. And this is the HD version of Florida. This isn't the SD one. So you'll get an idea. Once we get out past the bay, you'll get an idea of what the ground looks like. But first we're going to take a look at some performance. See, my flaps are, tell me about it, set. Yes, my flaps are set. My gear is down. We are all set to go. How's my fuel? I've been flying all around. I haven't even been checking it. Let me put some more fuel in. Just had a gas truck just pull right out on the runway. That's service. Alright, here we go. We got a wind coming from the right, so we gotta put some aileron on. And there's rotate. Okay. Gear up. Flaps up. So, like I said, I'm running not maximum scenery objects, but the one notch low, so it's high. And here's the the buildings. This is all pretty new. I fly in and out of St. Pete all the time. This looks pretty good. There's a lot more objects than there used to be, even running high. Okay, now let's take a look over here. Now that's, oh, it's going to be difficult for me to do this without the autopilot, so let me do that real quick. Autopilot, yaw, damper, and heading mode, there it is, and we'll flitch, and we'll go up to 3,000 feet. So yeah, I don't know if you can see it on your monitor, but there's a lot of houses down here now. And this is running high. I will come back and I'll change my settings to maximum. We'll see what the performance is. But I gotta tell you, if you're running maximum scenery objects, that is one dense area. I mean, it's just unbelievably covered with houses all over the place. And yeah, the frame rate does take a hit. This is Tampa Bay right out here. Let's see, I'm heading south. Let me see if I'm BSing here. Let's see, so I'm heading south. No, that should be Tampa Bay over there. This is Clearwater. That's Clearwater out there. So, that's, what's that called? There's a bunch of beaches along the way. I don't remember what that one is. But this is where the worst performance is, looking this way. And right now, with my rig, I'm getting 30 frames per second right there, even with all that stuff. So no performance issues for me at all. Now, like I said, I don't have G-Sync on, so 30 is all I got. It's 30 and occasionally down to, looks like 27. Yeah, not too bad. This is a cool little airport. I used to walk down here. There's a path right along there. There's a little sort of a beach, and there's a public swimming pool, some baseball parks, and here's an airport right there. But it's beautiful right down there along the water. Yeah, so now we're heading across the bay, and that's Fort Myers over there. And over there, I'll stay at 3,000 feet for a bit, and then we'll turn around and we'll come back, just so we can get a good shot of what the land looks like at 3,000 feet in HD, and what Orbx calls HD. I'd really be tempted to turn on reflections a little bit, but that really wouldn't be fair to them. Maybe I could do that after I'm done here. Just to see how good it does look. I also picked up Key West. I already had a Key West, but when I looked at theirs, with the dense houses all around. It looked really good. And then possibly tomorrow, we'll have to see how it goes. I'm working on changing out my computer. I've got a computer sitting next to me that is a 2070 Super. So I don't have a 2080 or the 1080, either one. Wish I could have gotten that, but you get what you can get. And I'll do kind of the same test to see how much that actually improves. It's always interesting to me. I always say that you have to skip a generation of cards to get the benefit of spending the money on a card. So if you've got a 1070, jumping up to a 2070 might not give me that much frame rate improvement. So here we go. So yeah, so that's, I don't know if you can tell, it's not too bad at 3,000 feet. I wouldn't say it's the sweet spot. You know, there's a point where you climb up to a certain place and it looks like you're leaning out with a camera or something like that. It looks very crisp. This isn't quite crisp at this altitude. There's a lot of houses down here. My frame rates are up in the high 30s here because there's just clearly not that many objects. Not well, there's a fair number, like right there. But it's performing very well. Okay. So yeah, maybe you can see it's a little fuzzy right around there. This little path right here just looks kind of fuzzy. Honestly speaking, if I was flying along and just doing a cross-country flight, I'd be looking out for the most part like this. You know, to be fair to this scenery, to any scenery for that matter. And that looks pretty decent. Like, I wouldn't be critical about that at all. You know, it's pretty good. And taking a look on the co-pilot side, yeah, it's pretty good. The roofs of these buildings are a little bit clean, but I imagine that's one texture. Orbx does tend to make their libraries very efficient. In terms of the color, I'd say, well, I've always thought that Orbx was a little dark, but you know, it's not too bad. So, yeah, I mean, your eyes tend to go really up in this area here, right around here, and maybe out here, and then you'll look over here somewhere. So you see a little bit of blurriness. Let's go up to 10,000 feet, and let's see what it looks like up there. Oops, I didn't mean to do heading. What am I doing? Altitude. I don't fly this airplane that often. Okay, so VS nose up. Okay, we're going up to 10,000 feet. Let some airspeed bleed off. And I don't think inertial separator does one lick of good. That's already off, no big deal, because I should turn pitot heat on. Fuel auto select. Yeah, let's do that. Let's put it on the right tank. Gotta be real careful with this thing. So here we are at 5,000. Right, that distance there looks really good. It's really clearing up. I'd say about here is pretty close. So how high is this? Around 6,500. So that's close to its sweet spot. This looks very crisp right there now. So as you get higher, it gets crisper. I also turned off their roads, by the way. So, you know, not real bad. Up here right now I'm getting 33 frames per second. There's a fair amount of houses out here. This is half of this is dense, about half. This stuff nearby. That is incredibly realistic looking right there. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where somebody films something on and says, is it real or is it X-plane or something like that. 96 knots. Well, keeping a good eye on my airspeed, wasn't I? But let's just take a look up here at 10,000 feet. What's my power set to? That's good. So this is 10,000 feet, high settings, high scenery object settings, 4K with just FXAA on. And yeah, I mean, it's nice. And no clouds, you know, I shut that off, so I'm getting 35, 36 frames per second right now. So this is something I can live with. I do a lot of flying up around 10,000 feet and sometimes above. And I like coming into this scenery at night. Speaking of night, let's take a look at the lighting real quick. Let's see, that's I. And let's go this way. Okay, let's make it dark. Well, there's not a whole lot of lights around here, so we're gonna, well, there's some up there. So antenna, I don't know if these are Orbx antennas or not. You know, they may be Orbx antennas. I don't know. I can't say. Well, I do see these sometimes. I'm going to turn around. Let's see. So that's too far. I don't know that they do a lot with lights. Maybe they do. I don't think that they do anything with the light bulbs, you know what I mean, the actual single lights themselves, which is to me kind of probably a good thing, because I've got my own set. This is probably default well, whatever you've got set in your X-plane, whatever lights those are. And I've got a modified set, which I've been, you know, pretty happy with. I don't know that anybody's completely content with lights. It keeps improving little by little. Let's see. So, I don't know what airport that is over there. I mean, it could be, I don't know how far, well, yeah, all I've got is GNS here. Okay, so, no, KSRQ. KSRQ. Yeah, oh, okay, yeah. So major airport over there. I do believe there's more antennas, and that was part of their work, was to to add more density to the scenery, and if they added more antennas, then yeah, that adds to some realism. KSRQ, is that Sarasota? I don't know. Let's look up here a little ways. So yeah, it explains taking over, popping out the lighting from time to time. It looks reasonable. I think it looks better. If you ask me, lighting always looks a little better towards, oops, like that, like right around there. I wonder if I should shut these window lights or the window shades off. Actually, I'm curious about something. Let me do something first. Windshield heat. Let me see if that clears any of that up. Just give it a second. So far I don't give it any, I've got nothing bad to say. If you're thinking about Florida, yeah, I think that did clear it up some. So we'll leave it like that. I don't have a lot of bad to say. I think the performance of the Orbx libraries is coming through. And if you're running a 1070 or better, or even lower maybe, you will get adequate performance. Right now at 10,000 feet I'm running 2728, and again my settings are high, and this time of day can be a little bit tough on frames too. A lot more of these antennas. That's welcome, especially when the haze is like this. Give some depth to that haze. Sometimes you're just looking out into haze, you can't see anything, but now you can see these antennas highlighting the ground. Nothing too bad there. So I guess that's Tampa right there. Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. This looks, yeah, it could be. This is that airport down in the Inner Bay. This is St. Pete. It's up at along the middle edge, and that would be Tampa Bay. And I think Orbx did provide some airports. I mean, if I looked in the directory and I saw that they've got a directory of Florida airports. I don't know what that means. They don't talk about it. So if they did, that's great. It looks really good down there. Go back to daytime. So, yep. He said this water really gets moving fast when tide's heading out. Pretty dangerous. But that looks really good. I'm going to get back over here and I might do a couple of tests running maximum scenery objects. I might do one test here at 10,000 feet. Let's see, so this is downtown St. Petersburg right there. Take a look at that. This will be interesting when, who is it? Somebody's coming out with a Tampa here in, I can't remember, Vertical Sim. They're coming out with a Tampa very soon. So, very much needed. Very interested in seeing that airport coming out. Surprised that the Tampa I have is from the .org. So I was surprised that they didn't have one. They've got Orlando, which is pretty decent. And then, Miami, I think there's 2 Miamis. And now there's a Tallahassee, and there's a Daytona. Some, some pretty good quality .org airports. So let's take a zoom in there and see what that looks like. So yeah, these are all boats, harbors. It's a harbor. And these are hotels with restaurants along the bottom of them. Big, beautiful park right here. Some real memories here. Good fishing. If you ever like to go fishing, it's a good place to go fishing. My son loves to fish. So yeah, not too bad. So now we're looking down here. Real quick, I am going to set my settings. I'm getting 35 frames. Let's put it through a little acid test. I'll do a couple things with this. This is where I'm going to load it up so we can take a look and see how dense this thing can really get. This will take a couple of minutes to come back. I'm real curious about, I've flown around, say, Petersburg a few test times before I started this video, and I watched Blue Games. He did a stream from Key West, and he has the airport as well. That was interesting. And some other people are, posting some videos. I've been watching those. It's good. I just wonder what they'll do next on the East Coast. Now that they've opened up Florida to themselves, and they put Key West, and there's a bunch of really cool airports mostly along the East Coast. So there's Fort Lauderdale, which is in dire need, I think. There's Fort Lauderdale Executive. What's the one north? Opelika is up there, and there's, I would say up the coast, there's about 10 airports. There's Miami Executive, which is really poor on the .org. And then Tampa's got about 3, 4, 5 airports. Okay. So let's get this thing a moment to settle down here. I'm getting 26 frames, but that is super dense. Like, there's houses everywhere down here, all over the place. It's a really weird stadium. It leans one way. So yeah, I know where we are. This is all houses. If I zoom in, let me zoom in down here, you can see, just tons and tons of houses, and I don't see any that are left out. None of it's got all the buildings. Go down to Everglades and see it has. And you know, even if you're using Ortho, I mean, I was using Ortho and I had the experimental water on, and I had some of these effects. I can't say it was. Oh, and there's the airport we departed from. That's St. Pete right there. I can't say this isn't better. I can't say it's not worse. Um, but I can't say necessarily it's better. I'm gonna temper my excitement. This is one heck of a long land bridge right here. Takes a good while to get across it, but it takes you right into, I believe that's Clearwater up there. And then there's manatees you can see up in this area here. Probably further up, probably up there somewhere. Yeah, so it's pretty. This is all houses. It's very dense. And here I'm getting 19, 20. Not surprised. 10,000 feet. There's a lot on 4K. There's a fair amount of flickering. It's not their fault to fix the flickering. Let's go. Ugh, this is gonna hurt. So that's that fixes the flickering. That looks very, very real, and my frame rate is a rock solid 13. So, and that's all because of this is all houses, and max scenery actually makes the trees larger too. So you get more depth of the trees. So if you've got a system, a better system than mine, you may be able to do that. It doesn't look bad. It isn't. It's just a little less smooth, is what I would say at this particular moment, because it's moving pretty slow. At least it appears to be. I'm doing. Looks like I'm doing about 200, 230. If I turn and look, yeah, you can see how slow that's going. That's, you know. So right there, I'm getting 16 frames. But yeah, that's an acid test. That's really asking a lot of a 1070 graphics card. My graphics usage is really high. I'm using 7.4 out of 8 gig. Yeah. You can hear my fans spooling up probably. Does that from time to time. I've got it set to do that to keep it cool. But yeah, looking out that way, even where this, I'm getting 19 right now. That looks incredibly real. Like it's one of those, again, is it real or is it X-Plane? And I just, you know, it's completely as good as I would expect to see in perhaps even FS 2020. Not to start a war about that or a conversation about it, but if FS 2020 looked the same as this, I wouldn't complain. I kind of think it will. But then you also have to ask yourself, oh, that looks real too. Very, very real. You also have to ask yourself, what's the next thing after this? I was talking about the airports. You know, I mean, will they go down to the Bahamas, which would be interesting if they wanted to do a lot of little cool airports that you can fly an E1000 or a TBM or a Cessna 208, and some regional jets. You could fly Embraer in there. You wouldn't fly a CRJ in there because they won't fly over water. But, well, I guess you could. Then, you know, there's lots of those airports, lots of K islands, stuff like that. It's really nice. That looks like a swamp. I thought it was a golf course at first. It just looks like maybe a park with some. Yeah. So yeah, a bunch of good flying. You know, will they go up to Georgia from here? You know, South Carolina, North Carolina, those are pretty states. Or will they head up to the Northeast? Pretty states up there too, Maine, Vermont. You know, New Hampshire. So no complaints there. So overall, I'd say the performance is pretty good. Let me put the lighting back on again. Knowing what I know, am I happy about the purchase? Yes. I am. I would have thought there would have been more lights down there. These antennas, they tend to go out beyond. Of course, there may not be any lights out there. I don't know. And I believe I'm over the water here. I'll make a right turn. Okay. So I hope this is useful to somebody. If it is, you know, push the like button. And I don't know, I may do one up around Jacksonville or something like that. Or I'm trying to think of the name of that other airport. There's some more on the East Coast. And like I said, I don't know what Orbx did to any of the airports. They do mention that they do rely on the airports that X-Plane itself provides. So that's something I really hope they fix in X-Plane in the future, is this popping. Yeah, maybe Vulcan. We all have these hopes for Vulcan, right? That's a pretty airport. I don't know what it is. That could be, that's KBKV. Maybe I'll have to fly into there. KBKV. Still flying over the water. Alright. Like I said, I hope you found it useful. Hope you stumbled upon it and found it useful. If you're just trying to decide whether or not to get it. Oh, look at those antennas. So far I'm enjoying it. And I'll be on next time. Another trip somewhere along the coast.